As we come up to another grand final day in Victoria, I thought it might be interesting to have a little look back in history at this iconic event. The most important fixture in the annual calendar of the Australian Football League, it's a near constant that has had its fair share of weird and wonderful things. So in this video to celebrate Grand Final Day, we're going to talk about what I think qualify as the 5 weirdest Grand Finals of the AFL and its predecessors. If you're new here, my name is Philip Mallis. I make videos about local history and transport, and I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Every little bit helps. 1916 is the first on this list, held in the middle of the First World War. Many Australians had enlisted to fight in the bloody conflict in Western Europe, the Mediterranean and other theatres. This left manpower shortages across the board, which affected every facet of life, including sport. The 1916 Victorian Football League, or VFL season, had only 4 teams participating. This was because there was a shortage of players, many of whom had joined up and gone to fight in the war. And so the only teams that were left to play were Carlton, Collingwood, Richmond and Fitzroy. But this wasn't the only strange thing about this year's season. The 1916 Grand Final was played between Carlton and Fitzroy at the MCG, with Fitzroy winning its 6th premiership. But what made it weird was that Fitzroy had also won the wooden spoon, having come 4th out of the 4 teams on the ladder. But because there were so few teams, Fitzroy was also eligible to play in the finals rounds, and subsequently made it to the grand final. As far as I can see, this is the only time that a club has won both a wooden spoon and the grand final in the same year, although please let me know if I missed something. The second on this list is the 1991 Grand Final, played between Hawthorn and West Coast. The reason that I think it's one of the weirdest is not because both team mascots were birds, but because it was the only one to have ever been played at Waverley Park. This massive stadium was also known as VFL and AFL Park, or I guess VFL Car Park, and was built in the southeastern suburb of Mulgrave in Melbourne, nearly becoming the world's biggest stadium. I have talked about this before in my longer video about Waverley Park, which you can see up here in the top right hand corner. The reason why it was at Waverley Park was because there were major renovations underway at the MCG. This was because the Great Southern Stand was being built, as well as repairs to fix structural issues and update the ground in general. Ironically, this was being at least partly done because the MCG struck a deal with the VFL, where they would jointly fund construction. In return, the VFL agreed to stop their attempts to drag finals matches away from the MCG and into stadiums that they controlled. 1991 was a strange match for a couple of other reasons. Rock singer Angry Anderson arrived in a car done up to apparently look like a Batmobile for unexplained reasons. It was also notable for being the first grand final to feature a non-Victorian team in the form of the West Coast Eagles. It's very unlikely that any grand final will ever be played here again, as the ground is now largely demolished. Although with the recent purchase of the ground by the AFL in June this year, who knows, maybe we'll see a comeback. Third is the VFL Grand Final held in 1945 at Princes Park, which was a very violent and heavily disrupted game. Because of this, the match between Carlton and South Melbourne was to become known as the Bloodbath. It was held just as the Second World War was finishing and had near constant fighting. From the very beginning, it was clear that this was no ordinary match, because play was stopped several times in the first 3 quarters due to players attacking each other and disruptions from spectators. But the biggest brawl was in the 4th quarter, when captain of Carlton, Bob Chitty, was pumped to the ground out of nowhere. After everything else that had happened, this seemed to unleash some kind of pent-up anger and frustration, as a massive fight erupted between players, training staff, and even spectators who jumped the fence, with the umpires forced to call in police to break up the brawl, although some of them were attacked as well. A total of 9 players were punished at the following week's tribunal hearings. One, Ted Whitfield, charged with perhaps the most serious offences, including attempting to strike a goal umpire, didn't even show up. At least partly as a result of this, he received a string of punishments, not least being banned entirely from Lake Oval, something that wasn't lifted until the 1960s. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there were 2 years of grand finals that were the only ones to have ever been held outside Victoria. These were in 2020, when it was held at the Gabba in Queensland, and in 2021, when the grand final was played at Optus Stadium in Western Australia, despite on both occasions both teams being from Victoria. In both years, Melbourne was in or in between lockdowns, with restrictions on travel and movement that would have made hosting a grand final at the regular venue of the MCG impossible. One fun fact that I liked was that a 3 square metre section of turf was actually taken from the MCG and transplanted into the surface of the Gabba before the match, so that the traditional venue of the MCG was still part of the event. Our last one on this list is a bit of a trick, because there wasn't actually any grand final played in 1924. This was technically the second time that this has happened, because this was also the case in the very first VFL season played in 1897. This was because of a very specific final system that was only used in that year, something that also caused this to happen again in 1924. At the time, there was a different system of playing finals to the one that's used today. This was called the Argus or Challenge final system. This is how it worked. The top 4 teams on the ladder at the end of the regular season go into the finals. This was a round-robin format where every team played every other team. Then, if the team that won the final series was also the one that was at the top of the ladder at the end of the regular season, they would be awarded the premiership. However, if it was a different team, then there would be another match played between the winner of the regular season and the winner of the finals. This match would be called the Grand Final, and the winner of this match awarded the premiership. So, in 1924, because Essendon came first in the final series and also top of the ladder for the regular season, there was no need for a grand final and they were awarded the premiership automatically. This was the only year when this specific format was used, and while there were some advantages to the round-robin format, it was very confusing and opened the door to possible manipulation. Plus, there was a decent chance that fans wouldn't get any grand final at all. As a result, it was replaced by the VFL in 1931. So, those are what I think are the 5 weirdest grand finals ever played, and hopefully one day I can add the Saints winning a second grand final to this list. What do you think of these matches? Do you have any other nominations? Let me know in the comments below. As always, a big thank you to all of my supporters. If you're also interested in seeing bonus content and early access to videos, head on over to members.philipmallis.com. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.